Have you ever sewn a collar and been really frustrated that the point of the collar didn't come out really pointy and it was a bit cornered and not as nice as you want it to be? I'm going to show you how to make a nice pointy corner that you can be proud of. I have my under collar and my upper collar, and I've sewn on some interfacing onto this side. Just tack that on. But I'm going to work from this side because it's a bit easier to mark. I like to mark the stitching line on the corner so I can get quite precise on that to help. And I like to use a friction pen. So this is how I do it. I'll get my tape measure and I'll mark the 5/8 line for the seam. Sort of draw a line along there. A bit lazy, I use the edge of my tape measure. And then I'll do the same on this side as well. So that's the point where the corner is. Just to give me a guide really for when I'm sewing. I'm approaching the corner of my collar, and what I do as I get a bit nearer, I'm going to alter the stitch length so it's a lot smaller. And then work to the point where I've drawn on my collar. You see there are a lot smaller stitches. I can take my time. Right, I'm pretty much on the point there. I'll lift my foot up. I have a piece of thread, and then one end of this thread I will tuck underneath inside. I'll make sure it's pushed up against the stitching that I've just done. Place that back down, and then I'm using my hand wheel on my machine. I'll do one stitch that's at a 45-degree angle to what I've done there. Lift my foot up, and now I can put the other end of this thread underneath and right underneath, and pull it tight so it's against the stitching, that little stitch I've just done. Put everything back in place, foot down, and now I can stitch away from the corner. And now I've got away from the corner, I'll increase my stitch length again and finish off the stitching I need to do. So here is my stitched collar and the two corners. I'm going to trim the seams so there's less fabric when I turn it on the right way. It's nice and flat. I'll cut the corners first. I'll cut one side fairly close to the stitching, and then I'll cut the other piece just a millimetre or so away from that one, and do that all the way around the edge. I don't want a bulk of fabric on my point, so I just cut a little bit extra off the sides there. So this is the moment of truth. I'll just get hold of these two threads that I used on the point. I shall turn the collar out, and this is where you want your point to be nice and pointy. If I gently pull on these two ends, that's the point of the collar being nice and pointy. It worked! Happy days. And now, because I've used this thread, I don't need it anymore. It's done what it's going to do. I can gently pull that out the way. I don't need my tacking threads along the top anymore, so I'm going to pull those out the way, because now I want to fold this into position so that I can press the collar. And the way my mum showed me was to sort of rub the seams together until it becomes nice and flat. Sometimes use my finger just to hold that there. I'll popped a pin in just to hold that nice and flat while I get to the ironing board. And I'll use my fingers on the inside as well. Sort of just roll the seam between your finger and thumb to make sure that's a nice flat edge. And I'll pop pins in along the way. So I'm gradually working my way across, teasing that seam so it's nice and flat, ready to press. And all good dressmakers know that pressing is a very important step when you're making new clothes. I'm at the ironing board and I'm now going to press the collar. So I'll gradually pull out the pins. Here are the points on the collar, nice and sharp. Please follow along on the next video to see how I progress making this shirt. Thank you very much. See you soon.